Everything you need is already inside of you. The world would not be what it is without you. When we begin to create change within us, we begin to create change in the world around us. Your journey to becoming your best self as the whole person starts right now.
Hello and welcome to our podcast. I'm Lauren Sweeney and I'm your host today on the Become Your Best podcast and webinar series. We're excited if you're a leader, an entrepreneur, or perhaps just somebody looking for some good professional development. We are here for you today. Our guest is John Mitchell. Really interesting because today we're talking about your mindset. We are talking about all of the things needed to really level up and the things that really do matter to us. The neat thing is that John literally has been applying the techniques that he's going to tell us about today. He applies what he learned from a book we may well know, Think and Grow Rich. In 12 minutes a day, he applies this technique to his life and saw his yearly income go over $5 million a year after 20 years of $200,000 to $300,000 a year. The 25-time increase happened because John leveraged himself by applying science to his life. His daily technique works because it focuses you only on what moves the needle. So important. We call that our big rocks here at Rise Up For You. Triples your discipline and consistently generates new business ideas every week. This happens because of three key aspects of the leveraging process that we will talk about today. It actually landed him on the cover of Time magazine, and he teaches this technique at the University of Texas McCombs School of Business, which is one of the top 5 business schools in the country. He's also a mental coach for the head athletic coaches at the University of Texas as well. And of course, he's on the famous Rise Up For You podcast. Well, John, we're honored to have you on the show.
Lauren, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you apply these techniques, you're making $200,000 to $300,000 a year, which is a great income. Yet you knew there was something missing. There was a gap. And in 12 minutes a day, you apply these techniques and literally 25x your income. And I imagine your happiness at the same time.
Yes. When I turned 50, I just wasn't as successful as I thought I should be, which I think a lot of people may feel that way. And I know this sounds materialistic, but I saw that to have the exceptional life I really wanted and dreamed of, I knew I had to start netting 7 figures a year. And I'm like, well, how am I going to change this 20-year history of low 6 figures a year? Yeah. And so, I don't know, probably 3 months after I turned 50, this pearl of wisdom comes to me, and I'm like, just go find the top book of the world on success and apply that book literally word for word to your life. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So I do the research, find out the book Think and Grow Rich has been read by 100 million people. Next best-selling book on success has been read by less than 10 million people. So I'm like, top book in the world on success by a factor of 10. Here we go, just what I needed. So I go, I buy the book, I read the book, and then I discover what everybody else has discovered. The author says there's a secret for success, but he only is going to give you half the secret. Well, I'm bummed, and I mope around for a couple of weeks, and Lauren, one day I wake up and I go, John, just man up and immerse yourself in the book and figure out the full secret and how to apply it. And so I do that, and over about 2 months, and I start applying it to this new business I was starting in the reverse mortgage field. And suddenly my income starts doubling and doubling and doubling to where, 4 years later, I was netting $5 million a year. And of course, I felt so blessed. But what was so cool, and you sort of said it in the intro, I could see why it was happening. I really was. I was focused only on what moves the needle. I mean, all distractions went by the wayside. I could do the habits that I never could before from having way more discipline. And like you said, I had consistently new ideas coming into my head that had never come in before. And it was just so transformative. And I just became fascinated by how you could take two key scientific principles and apply them to your life and so materially impact your success. And and so I thought, I'm going to share this with the world. And so I sold my company, and a couple of months later met the former chancellor and president at University of Texas. And he said, hey, you got to teach this at Texas, and why don't we teach it together? And so that was like 7 years ago. And so today, I do that, but my real passion is helping business owners net 7 figures a year. That's my crystal clear goal, is with my partner, my great partner, Kelly Hatfield. That's our focus, is to help driven entrepreneurs net 7 figures a year.
I love that. So talk to me about now, if somebody is listening, they either could be starting to work on the principles that we're going to talk about, or maybe they're in it, but we're human beings. So we're constantly evolving. And, as we coach our clients and executives, it's not like I learned to tie my shoes and now I know how to tie them, right? We're constantly moving as people, and we're still in a global pandemic and all of the things. So where would you suggest is a great one of those techniques, or something you love, no matter kind of where people are at, starting or in the middle of a development process?
Well, let me sort of articulate something that I think is pivotal about Think and Grow Rich. The book talks about applying science to your life to have your success, to leverage yourself, which most people have never ever thought about doing that, right?
Yeah.
And it's the whole book is fundamentally based on one simple fact, which is that 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. So think about that. If that's really true, if 95% of your daily actions are unconscious, the only way for you to have a higher level of success than you currently have is to influence those unconscious daily actions. I mean, it's pure math. And you do that by proactively influencing the subconscious mind by applying science. And I say all that, and we live in this world where people are throwing facts right and left. You don't know really what's true or what's not true. And so oftentimes I'll make people Google what percentage of your daily actions are unconscious. And in big dark letters, it'll say 95%. And when people get that one thing, that's the big domino. When they get that, they're like, this may be something I'm interested in.
I love this idea of making those unconscious actions conscious. Then you're really choosing what's happening, at least with some consciousness, some mindfulness. And we hear a lot about burnout. We talked with a lot of our clients about, the great resignation, both on the employer side and the employee side. That consciousness even goes into emotional intelligence. Being conscious and being self-aware, you have to start there. Right. Otherwise, you can't possibly make an impact down the road.
Well, you just mentioned the great resignation. And, I just was reading the other day, Lauren, that 40% of employees have either quit their job or are thinking about quitting their job. Well, the same thing's happening with the entrepreneurs, except they can't quit their job. They are the job. And what I am sort of laying out is an alternative way of playing the game of life, or the alternative way of playing the game of being an entrepreneur that I found is just way better than the normal way of doing it.
I love that you speak to that, because we do have a lot of listeners that are entrepreneurs and leaders in companies, both. And it really does boil down to that consciousness and really deciding. And like you said, being able to pre-game soup before you get burnt out, before you have that level. So how do you begin making those thoughts or those actions from unconscious to conscious? What is a great first step?
Well, let me explain the science behind what you just said, really. Yeah. This is how the human mind works. The conscious mind sets the intention and is influenced by logic. The subconscious mind controls your everyday actions, and it's influenced by repetition. It doesn't care about logic. And Lauren, I'll give you an example.
Sure.
Let's say you want to lose weight. Well, conscious mind sets the intention based on the logic of the health benefits. But the reason people aren't losing weight is from lack of intention. The reason they're not losing weight is they're not influencing the part of their brain that controls their daily actions, and that part of the brain is the subconscious mind. It's a more primitive part of the brain than the part that sets the intention. And that's why this 12-minute a day technique, it gives it that repetition to do the things that maybe you never could before. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I was talking with a client yesterday. We're talking about, for example, the weight loss, right? It's 2022, beginning of the year, an issue of also identity. Like
Right.
think we're someone who doesn't work out, just like you're saying, those actions, and then we don't, even if we decide or have a power partner or make all these New Year's resolutions.
Right. Well, the other thing that's interesting, every one of us has a fundamental problem that we have to overcome. And that problem is that we're innately wired for survival, and 95% of our daily actions are unconscious. And Lauren, what that means is when you open your eyes each morning, you're on the autopilot most of the day, and you're innately wired to be reactive, negative, and fear-based. Well, think about that. That's exactly the opposite of how you want to be if you want to be productive, creative, and happy. And that's why people operate literally at about 20% of their potential. And so many of our clients go, as we get to know them, they go, I don't know what it is, but I just intuitively, I feel like I'm playing at only 20% of my potential. I'm like, yeah, sure. This is why you got to overlay new programming.
Absolutely. That programming that gets in there, and then we forget and we just do things. We just do whatever.
Well, you got to realize you just have to reprogram your autopilot. You can't get around your autopilot because it's running your life, and you can either let it work for you or work against you. Most people, 98%, are letting it work against them. But there's a simple way to make it work for them.
Absolutely. I love too that idea of simplicity. We talk about how it can just be a little turn of a knob, little turn of a dial. It doesn't have to be literally rearranging your whole life, which is not realistic.
Right.
What is some of your favorite mind shift or hacks that have really helped sort of turn the dial or for your clients?
Well, I'll tell you one that I think you'll find interesting, and I'm going to teach your audience how to do this towards the end.
Yeah.
But it's setting aside time to just think 2 times a week, to deep think 2 times a week. And Lauren, this is a habit that the top entrepreneurs in the world do. Bill Gates does it, Elon Musk does it, and so many entrepreneurs are working in their business. They never work on their business. And so the first thing I teach them is, okay, here's how this works. First of all, you figure out the 2 times a week you're gonna do it. Then, and I pick Wednesdays and Sunday mornings. Wednesday because you're halfway through your week, and Sunday because you're just more reflective about your week. And you pick your favorite place in your home or nature, and then you're going to have your thinking tablet, which is basically just a pad of blank sheets of paper in a nice leather binder. And so now when you're sitting in that comfy place and you're staring at that blank sheet of paper, it's basically a 3-step process. The first thing you do is let whatever come into your head come. Just let it come, scratch it out as it comes, just encourage it to come. Then the second thing, that will take 5 or 10 minutes. The full session will be about 30 minutes, but the first part will be 5 to 10 minutes. Then the second part is figure out a question to ask yourself. When you ask yourself a question, it changes the dynamics of how your brain works, and this is what will take it to a much deeper level of thinking than sort of normal thinking. And so figure out the question, and then ask yourself that question, and then write what comes. And then after about 30 minutes, draw a line under the last thing you wrote,
Okay.
and you write the 2 or 3 takeaways, and you write your action steps. And then you take those action steps and put them on next week's to-dos, so you're connecting your thinking to taking actions. And so that is essentially how it works.
I love that. The simplicity. I like how you said twice a week, unthinking, twice a week to turn the knob down on the 70,000 or so
Right.
thoughts a day, and just quiet it a little bit more, or bring awareness. I like to also bring awareness to perhaps the negative thoughts or the limiting beliefs. And the other good point too, you said we're always working inside our business. If we're an entrepreneur,
Right.
if we're a small business owner, if we're an executive, we face that a lot with a lot of the teams that we're training and a lot of executives we're talking with. They feel like I just can't pull back and have that bird's eye view. But as you
Right.
explained, John, that is how you 25x'd
Right.
your income, was taking time to have that bird's eye view and then come back.
Right. Well, and you'll find this interesting. And if I may be, let me be a little vulnerable at the moment.
Sure.
So when I turned 50, my mom was dying of pancreatic cancer, and so every day after work, I would go and see her in the hospital, and then I'd go out in the parking lot and just cry my eyes out.
Oh.
And this goes on for a couple of months. And of course, I'm feeling the loss of, or about to lose my mom. And I'm thinking about all that she did for me, as did my dad.
Yeah.
And sent me to Jesuit high school in Dallas. And I'm like, so I'm feeling the pain of losing her, but I'm also feeling the pain of just having an average life and not making the most out of my life. And so as I'm dealing with all that, I see now that caused me to go into thinking real rich, maybe at a deeper level than anybody else had ever done, and come up with this. And one of the things I realized, though, as I was really digging into this, is if you had asked me to rate myself as an entrepreneur on a scale of 1 to 10 in my 30s and 40s, I would have rated myself probably an 8. But when I crossed over to hitting 7 figures a year, Lauren, I'm like, whoa, I wasn't an 8. I was a 3 or 4. And, it reminds me of that great Bill Parcells quote, that you are what your record says you are. And, it took me on this path as I developed what we do, is defining what is a competent entrepreneur. I was misinterpreting working hard with being competent as an entrepreneur. And what I realized is that that's not really the case, because the competence of an entrepreneur comes down to being focused only on what moves the needle. You got to be highly organized. You got to have the wisdom of experts flowing into your head consistently.
Yeah.
You need to be an 8-player leader if you want to have an 8-player team. You got to have financial control of your business. And there's that's just 6 or 7. And in working with people, I call it mentoring plus methodology. The mentoring is teaching people how to be a competent entrepreneur and giving them the habits. And then once my partner and I mentor them in that way, then we give them the methodology to make those habits show up in their thoughts and actions
And make them
automatically.
reality. I love that. Well, talk with us, John, how they can learn more about you, how they can find you, and all of the things.
I've got a special gift for your audience.
Awesome.
I'm going to teach your audience exactly how to do this thinking, deep thinking, 2 times a week, and I want them to realize that this is more than just thinking. This technique is the first step to proactively influencing your subconscious mind, which is
Yes.
something most people have never done before. And so I'm going to give your audience a video and a guide, and all to get it. They just go to thinkitbeit.com/RU.
I love that.
RU for Rise
Perfect.
Up.
To rise up. That's awesome. So definitely check out his website. We'll put it in the show notes as well. Or if you're watching live on our Facebook page, you can grab it as it's up on the screen. Well, John, we love to ask a final question that so relates to everything we're talking about today about the subconscious mind and our actions and our thoughts and changes that we can make that move the needle. What does rise up for you mean to you?
I think it means to play to your full potential. Um, Most people are playing way under their full potential, and as I work with clients, one of the things I see is that sometimes people go, "Well, this won't work on me." This works on everyone.
Yeah.
It's pure science. It cannot work. But I tell you, Lauren, that doesn't mean it's right for everybody. Just because
Yeah.
it works on everybody, because we see that you have to be driven, because we're creating clarity. That's essentially the simple concept of Think and Grow Rich, is create immense clarity, exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and how you're going to achieve your goals. And then you take that clarity and feed it to yourself 12 minutes a day. And after 21 days, the science kicks in, and that it affects your daily actions, and those enhanced, improved daily actions creates the life you want.
I love it. John, it's so good. Definitely check out your website and those tools. But just thank you for what you did. You went first, and then now the impact that you're making on people all around the globe. Thank you for being on the show today.
Right. And right back at you. You got a great podcast, and so keep it up.
Thank you so much. Fantastic conversation, no matter what stage you're at. Thank you for being here today. If you're thinking, I need a little more confidence in my life, please download our free kit at riseupforyou.com/confidence. I'm Lauren Sweeney, the Vice President here at Rise Up For You. Thank you for joining us and encouraging your professional and personal development. We'll see you next time.